Hello, Paul.
Yes, good
Yes,
evening.
good. This is Chairman Abney. You're on House Finance. If you would just give us your full name, the bill or bills on which you're testifying, and give us a couple of minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Oliveira. I'm a tax partner with Conn Litwin Renza, KLR, a CPA firm based here in Providence. My partner, Alan Litwin, spoke earlier tonight and gave some background on the firm, so I'll skip that. First, I would like to thank the committee for considering my testimony tonight in opposition to House Bills 5227 and 5229, both of which propose to increase the top personal income tax rate in Rhode Island. My practice as a tax advisor largely revolves around servicing Rhode Island businesses, many of which are still family and founder-owned. As this committee has heard tonight, the majority of these businesses still operate as pass-through entities for income tax purposes, whether in the form of sole proprietorships, LLCs, taxed as partnerships, and S corporations. These proposed tax increases will have a direct and negative impact on these business owners at a time when many of them have not yet fully rebounded from the devastating effects of the last 14 months. These are people who did everything they could to hold their businesses together from the shock and keep their workforce in place for as long as they possibly could. In the manufacturing sector, we saw companies rework their production process at their own expense to accommodate the manufacture of masks, which were donated to various organizations in the early days of the pandemic. Now, as we are beginning to see some light at the end of this long tunnel, these taxpayers will be greeted with tax increases. We are seeing some signs of economic recovery, but make no mistake that many business owners have not fully recovered and face a great deal of other challenges as they try to ramp up their operations. And we've heard some examples of that from business owners already tonight. Hitting them with increased taxes seems counterproductive at this early stage of recovery. Either of these bills would be damaging in two ways. It would encourage those business owners who already call Rhode Island home to pursue other opportunities to restructure and relocate some or all of their operations to other jurisdictions. And it would further reduce Rhode Island's competitiveness and ability to attract new businesses and grow our economy. So again, I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to be heard on these bills. I respectfully encourage you to vote no on both measures.
Thank you, Paul, for your important testimony. We really appreciate it. Good night and stay safe.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
Good night. Thank you.
Frederick? Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Good evening. Just give us your full name for the record, and then which bills you're testifying on.
My name is Frederick Hartney, and I live in Woodstock, and I'm in support of House 5678 filed by Representative Casey. Your package tonight contain many written statements from the constituents of the state who are describing how the taxation of these Massachusetts pensions by the state of Rhode Island affects them with double taxation. Massachusetts taxes these contributions while they are earned and treats them accordingly when the owners of them retire. I have been given the opportunity by you folks to testify, as Representative Casey said, for several years, and yet we have not been able to get the situation corrected. If you haven't already done so, those of you who are not familiar with this issue, I encourage you to read the written statements, which I'm sure you will. These citizens of the state are longtime residents who also serve their communities civically, volunteer to assist many organizations, religious and secular, coach young people, work on and raise funds for local charities, and are contributors to the culture and quality of life here. They are doers, not takers. At the present time, the only way they see to eliminate this inequity, as some of them have done, is to pick up and leave. These citizens so affected live in communities throughout the state, from Woonsocket to Warren, Cumberland to Jamestown. In their previous employment, they served as healthcare workers, mental and physical therapists, correctional officers, and educators, etc. They support local businesses as well. With the elimination of the yoke of double taxation, the funds which go back in their pockets will undoubtedly go out to the state economy. They will continue to pay real estate taxes, excise, sales tax, etc., and income tax on any other employment they may have. This legislation has always been held for further study. When I asked Representative Casey to file it at the beginning of the legislative session, he then sends me a copy of the bill, such as H5678. I send it out to the people in my email grouping who are in this category. And I ask them to contact their representatives. Invariably, they get back to me and say, I did it, and my representative says they support me, and if it gets to the floor, I will support it. I respectfully ask that you as a group do just that, and let the citizens of this state, who are retirees from Massachusetts, have a clear choice of whether they should stay or whether perhaps they really need to leave. I'd just like to take a moment to read you a short statement that's in favor, that's in your packet. I won't read it all.
You got about 30 seconds, Frederick.
Yes, sir. It said, both my wife and I fall under this onerous situation and would likely cause us to move away from the state and town I have lived in and loved for 62 years. I detest the thought of having to sell the house I built here in 1989 and move away from the people and places I have come to love, but this is what several of my now retired co-workers have had to do.
Well, thank you
very much for your time and for listening, and hopefully you will take action that will help us in this regard. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. I see no hands for questions, but I appreciate your testimony and your hard work on this.
Thank you, sir. You have a good evening. Be safe and well.
Thank you very much. I'll try. Marcela.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? This is House Finance. You're on with Chairman Abney. Just state your
Hi,
full
Chairman.
name. Yeah, just state your full name for the record, please, and the bills in which you are testifying on. You have a couple of minutes. You're on.
Of course. My name is Marcela Bettencourt. I'm the Executive Director of the Latino Policy Institute, and I am here to testify on Bill 5227, introduced by Representative Karen Alzate. So I am thank you to Representative Alzate for introducing this bill, who has been supported by many advocates and legislators before, and it is more timely than ever, as you would have heard today. The pandemic demonstrated to us that the deep economic and social inequities have had deadly consequences when they prevent individuals from accessing basic health care, food, or housing. This legislation seeks to raise the tax rate for only about 5,000 Rhode Island taxpayers. Today, only 9% of Black and 6% of Latino Rhode Islanders are among the top 20% of income earners, whereas 26% of Black and 32% of Latino Rhode Islanders fall on the lowest 20%. Rhode Islanders that pay a higher percentage of their income on state and local taxes than those that are in the middle and higher incomes. As the committee is well aware of, specifically, over the last couple of years, ensuring that any and all programs and legislation that help Rhode Islanders thrive needs to be fully funded for the long term is imperative. Passing this legislation can and will help do that. As you've heard several times, our state is in great need of bold investments in several issues, not just one, that can ensure that all Rhode Islanders can thrive. By bringing millions of dollars, exactly over $128 million, to our state, we will be able to secure long-term programs and services that can help our state thrive, such as equitable school funding and accessible healthcare services. Thank you so much, Chairman, and to the committee for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate that. Be safe and take care of yourself.
You as well.
Thank you. Next caller. Leanne.
Hi, Chairman. Yes, this is Leanne Barrett from Rhode Island Kids Count.
Thank you. You've given us your full name, where you're from, so just on the bill or bills you're testifying on, just give us that number and then whether you support or not support in a couple of minutes, please.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much. Well, I'm here on behalf of the Right from the Start campaign and Rhode Island Kids Count to strongly support Representative Alzate's Revenue for Rhode Island Bill H5227. As you've heard already, the bill would raise the state income tax on top 1% of earners in Rhode Island, which would make our tax system more fair, more equitable, and would raise $128 million in new state revenue per year, which is absolutely essential if we're going to do right by children and families in the state. I have three things in my written testimony that I've submitted, and I'll just give you some highlights. Number one, we really need to improve access to high-quality, affordable child care. Currently, Rhode Island allocates $47 million less in state general revenue to child care than we did in 2005. We've seen an 80% drop, and I have a chart attached to my testimony. If we had maintained our state level of funding, all the new federal funding could have been given over to increasing the wages of early educators, which is really necessary. They make $12 per hour, and to expand access so more families could receive help paying for child care. Currently, Rhode Island is not in compliance with the federal law because the rates we pay providers who care for low-income children are much too low, and we have an equal access barrier, and we'll be subject to fines. So it's very necessary to increase our state funding for child care. We also need state funding to expand Medicaid coverage to cover community-based perinatal doula services, which are really important to address maternal and child health challenges and disparities by race and income. And last, number three, is to increase the Medicaid rate for early intervention, which serves children who have little infants and toddlers who have developmental delays and disabilities. Our EI providers have not received a rate increase in 18 years. In fact, they are paid less than they were 18 years ago. They received a cut in 2009, and they're currently experiencing a staffing crisis because the wages are so low. So with that, I just want to conclude by urging passage of this really important revenue legislation so that the state can make some long-needed improvements in our services for children and families. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leanne, for your testimony. Keep up the good work and all that you do. We appreciate that. Just to give everybody an update on where we are, we still have about 47 more guests to go. So I am really appreciative of those of you who have already testified and those of you who are not. That's where we are in the queue. So thank you. Okay, next caller, please. Is this Tal?
Yes.
Yeah, Tal, this is Chairman Abner. You're on House Finance. Just give us your full name, the bill or bills on which you're testifying, and a couple of minutes of testimony, please.
Thank you so much, Chairman Abney. My name is Tal Friedman, and I am the Rhode Island Campaign Director for Demand Progress, a national organization with over 850,000 affiliated activists. And I'm here to testify in favor of House Bill 5227 in favor of taxing Rhode Island's top 1%. I also organize with Reclaim Rhode Island, an organization that has contacted over 1,000 voters in Warwick, Cranston, and Cumberland who have overwhelmingly been in favor of taxing our state's richest 1%. We've heard personal narratives tonight from teachers, students, small business owners, and others who have all named incredibly important uses for the $130 million that would be generated by taxing the rich. I'd like to reiterate some data. As the Economic Progress Institute has shown, those in the top 1% in our state pay a lower tax rate than the bottom 20% of income earners. The bottom 20% pays almost twice as much in state and local taxes as the top 1%. According to a survey by Fleming and Associates, 72% of voters and 92% of Democrats support raising taxes on the 1% and making our tax system a bit more just. Now, some from the business community have argued that the tax increase would hurt small businesses because many businesses are registered as pass-through entities, S-corps, sole proprietorship, and their earnings are reported as their owner's earnings. In 2018, over 1,000 people filed taxes with income from S-corps, partnerships, or sole proprietorship, 100,000. Of them, only around 4,000 and a couple hundred, let's say 4,500, would be affected by the new tax increase on income over $475,000 a year. That's 4,500 individuals who earned over $500,000 in profits in 2018. This makes perfect sense. Only 5,000 people, or 1%, of Rhode Island's tax filers would see their taxes increase. So it makes sense that some small business owners who earn over $475,000 a year fall into that top 5,000 individuals who will pay higher taxes when this bill passes. And it makes sense that some of those people are business owners who file taxes as such. So yes, some business owners will see their taxes increase, but only those who reported income of over $475,000 per year. People who can afford to pay their fair share so that our state can fix our roads, fix our crumbling schools, and provide everyone a fair shot in our state. We've heard from the people of Rhode Island, teachers, small business owners, students, and others. 72% of voters. Rhode Island supports taxing the 1%, and it's time we did so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tal. Appreciate your advocacy. Take care. Stay safe.
You as well. Take
I'll
care,
try.
Chairman Abner.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Good
Good
night.
night. Okay, is this Justine?
Yes, hi.
Justine, this is Chairman Abner. You're on House Finance. Please just give us your full name for the record, and then the bills that you are either supporting or not supporting, and a couple of minutes of testimony. You're on.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. Good evening to you, to the members of the committee. My name is Justine Oliva, and I'm the Manager of Research at the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council. RIPEC's President and CEO, Michael DBAs, submitted written testimony explaining our opposition to House Bills 5227 and 5229, so I'll try to be brief. Our primary concern is that these bills would negatively impact Rhode Island's economy at a time when it is in a particularly precarious position. Due to the pandemic, many Rhode Island businesses were forced to close in the last year. Many are still working towards recovery. According to testimony heard last week in the Revenue Estimating Conference, the state won't see a return to pre-COVID employment levels until fiscal year 2024. Most Rhode Island businesses and nearly all small businesses are organized as pass-through entities and report their profits through personal income tax. Moreover, most higher income earners in the state report business income through this channel. These business profits are often reinvested through new ventures or the expansion of existing businesses. The proposed legislation may also deter new businesses from investing in Rhode Island. Prior to reform in 2011, Rhode Island's top income tax rate of 9.9% was among the highest in the country, and the state ranked 47th in terms of its overall business tax climate, according to the Tax Foundation. Due to income tax reform and other policy changes, Rhode Island has climbed in the Tax Foundation rankings to 37th. However, we're still in the bottom third of states, and our current income tax rate is already 20% higher than that of Massachusetts. Rhode Island's personal income tax rate is already among the most progressive in the nation, and higher earners already have an outsized role in terms of total collection. According to a 2018 report from DOR, nearly half of the state's personal income tax revenues came from the 4.5% of taxpayers with personal income above $200,000. Finally, regarding House Bill 5229 specifically, we'd like to note that Rhode Island already increases spending on education year over year, and as there is no guarantee in the bill that the state would raise funding levels beyond that which would otherwise be appropriated, it's likely that any additional funds would be offset by a reduction in state or municipal spending. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify tonight.
Thank you, Justine, for your testimony. It was important to us. Stay safe.
Thanks. Bye.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next caller, please.
Hello?
Hi, is this Robert?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Robert Goldberg, how you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. I heard a reverb in the background. I guess you turned your TV down or off. That's a good deal.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you very much. So for the record again, just state your full name, the bill that you're testifying on, and then give us a couple of minutes. You're on, sir.
This is Robert Goldberg, registered lobbyist for the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, and I'm testifying on their behalf against this success and ambition tax that has the number of 5227, 5229, and I also would like to go on record as the Chamber opposing 5647 as well. Mr. Chairman, as you know, I've been around the building and involved in legislation for way past 30 years. And these are scary, scary pieces of legislation. For the first time, I'm hearing using taxation to target a single group. That's something new and something very concerning to me. They're designating the group as the rich let's take their money. Taxation is nothing but a taxation, and what I'm really hearing is let's take it because they have it. That is just wrong and should not be condoned. You've heard from the experts this evening, the CPAs, the accountants. They've given you the technical data. This is not just, quote, the rich, whoever they may or may not be, or how they got that way, is of no concern to the people just trying to, quote, take their money. The Chamber of Commerce opposes this legislation, and I urge the committee members to do so as well. And as you know, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm always available for any questions concerning issues which concern my clients, and certainly on these measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Hope you have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you, you too.
Mm-hmm. Hello, you're on House Finance, Matthew.
Hi, yes, Chairman Abney.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. You have a couple of minutes to give your name and your testimony. Just getting the first parts out.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Matthew Netto. I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy for AARP Rhode Island, and representing our 132,000 plus members statewide, we are proud to support Chairwoman Ruggiero's H5681 that provides targeted property tax relief to households with the heaviest tax burdens relative to their incomes. Rhode Island does, as you heard earlier today from Maureen and the chairwoman, Rhode Island does currently have this type of program. The current income threshold and maximum credit are quite low and markedly less than our neighbors in Massachusetts, Maine, and Connecticut. These programs are designed to provide targeted relief to seniors who need it most, those who are lower or moderate income and most of the time on fixed incomes. This type of program is among the most cost-effective approaches to property tax relief because it targets the assistance to households with the least ability to pay, rather than providing more expensive across-the-board relief to all taxpayers without regard of their payment capacity. In Rhode Island, 30% of older Rhode Islanders who own a home pay 30% or more of their income on housing costs. Likewise, nearly half of older Rhode Islanders pay 30% or more on renters pay 30% or more on their housing costs. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, among other industry experts, define housing cost burdens as those who pay more than 30% of their income for housing. This leads to them having the difficulty affording necessities such as food, clothing, or transportation. As we've seen with the pandemic, as certain things cannot be planned for, and the property tax is based off the value of the home. It is in some ways more of a tax on wealth that is not directly related to a taxpayer's current income or their ability to pay. This stands in contrast with income and sales taxes. A drop in income results in a reduction of income taxes, and taxpayers can curb their purchases to avoid paying sales tax when their income declines. This isn't the case with property taxes, where they remain the same regardless of the changes in the taxpayer's income. And lastly, we've all seen that real estate values in Rhode Island have skyrocketed recently, and I'm sure that future assessments will likely lead to higher property taxes. Increasing the circuit breaker maximum threshold to $40,000 and its maximum credit to $750 would both put Rhode Island's program on par with neighboring states and provide some much-needed relief for house cost-burdened Rhode Islanders. I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration, and we urge you to consider this bill again in the near future. I hope you all have a great evening, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate all you do also.
Thank you.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You've got a couple of minutes to give us your name and your testimony.
Hi, my name is Arthur Flanders. I'm from Providence. I would urge you all to vote in favor of H5229 and H5647. These bills are critical to forcing the moneyed class to help maintain the infrastructure that they use to exploit the citizens' labor. Roads don't repair themselves, and although in Rhode Island, neither does the state, they gain wealth while destroying the infrastructure. and someone asks you, how do we fund this or that? Nursing homes, highways, schools. This is how. We put the power back into the hands of the people. Be courageous, be inspiring like we were 245 years ago when we declared our independence from King George III. This small tax increase means little to the money, but it can change the lives of so many for the good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Have a good night and stay safe, sir.
You as well.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. You are on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the members of the committee. My name is John Simmons, and I am testifying on behalf of the Rhode Island Business Coalition in opposition to 5227, 5229, and 5647. I will spend my time on 85227, in particular with written testimony on the other two bills that have already been provided. If there are questions later, I would be pleased to respond. 85227 is proposing to increase the current high tax rate of 5.99 by nearly 50% to 8.99 on income over the $400,000. This is a significant tax policy change that goes against many of the tax principles of horizontal and vertical equity and fairness of the tax structure. And again, the current rankings of this Rhode Island's income tax structure shows that we are the 17th highest currently. With this proposal, we would be then the 7th highest in the tax rate and the highest in New England. We are currently the 9th highest in tax burden, which is what the actual payments in the nation when all taxes are considered, and the 3rd highest in New England at 11.4% tax burden to the GDP. And this, again, would be now changed as well with this tax proposal. The proponents indicate this change would generate an additional $128 million, or nearly a 9% increase in the income tax revenue for Rhode Island. This reflects nearly a 4% increase in total taxes in Rhode Island, and it would be applied roughly to about 4,200 taxpayers. Earlier testimony says this is a relatively unfair approach to tax number of people because they might have it. According to the latest IRS data, it's about 4,300 to 4,200 taxpayers. This is a significant change to a small number of individuals and pass-through entities in particular. The LLCs and LLPs and others will have to determine how they're going to pay for this tax, and they will have to begin to plan for it now. It affects them in fiscal 20 or calendar tax year in 22, and they'll have to begin to make tax payments in fiscal 22 as well. They will have to make the estimate payments for the 22, and then this requirement will be able to also part if they don't make the right estimates, they'll be liable to any penalties. The double-digit increase in taxes to a small target group of Rhode Island taxpayers will be felt. You will hear tonight the thoughts of many businesses that will have to bear this increase. They are receiving a message to business that your tax burden will be increased again, not because the state needs the funds to balance the budget either for fiscal 22 or for fiscal 23. Instead, the increase in tax revenue will fund programs and services yet to be determined. The last major change in the income tax increased the overall tax burden to high-income earners. This would be a replication of that. In all wage categories over $175,000 of income had a higher tax liability than the previous tax structure. This was in the 2010 change. Under $175,000 saw a decrease in liability. Contrary to some testimony, the previous change did not reduce the tax on those making over $175,000. You can see a report from the Department of Revenue to justify the statement. This proposal will increase greatly the effective tax rate for a small cohort of Rhode Islanders, well above the other New England states, including Mass and Connecticut. We will be at a distinct competitive disadvantage, impeding decisions to makers or impacting decision makers within the state of Rhode Island. With the receipt of increased federal funds and the Rhode Island economy seemingly improving over the next several years, to the state's consultants, you have the question that must be asked is what is the purpose and need for this tax change? Therefore, Mr. Chairman, we request that no further action be taken, and thank you for your indulgence, and hopefully you'll have a good night.
And thank you for your testimony. You have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
Welcome. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and the testimony. You're on House Finance.
Welcome, Mr. Chairman. My name is graftonwilley, but everybody knows me as Cap. I am a longtime CPA, a member of the Rhode Island Society of CPAs, a member of the Rhode Island Business Coalition, chairman of the SBA Small Business Tax and Budget Subcommittee, a small business owner, and an active small business advocate on a state and national level. I've testified before your committee many times, and I come before you in strong opposition to the House Bills H5227 and H5229. I do feel somebody is a punching bag here, but I was one of the architects of the 2011 personal income tax reform, which we worked hard to make the reform legislation fair to all taxpayers. We had some basic principles. The reform had to be revenue neutral over various ranges of income tax levels. We achieved this with detailed analysis of the proposed changes over the various tax brackets. This analysis recognized that there would be winners and losers within each bracket, but the brackets as a whole would be revenue neutral. It also had to be revenue neutral to the state. As it turns out, it has been a positive revenue generator. The goal was to make the Rhode Island tax system more competitive with other states. Our 9.9% marginal tax rate, which was primarily hitting small businesses, was an impediment to attracting and retaining businesses, especially when we looked at Massachusetts that had a 5% rate. Connecticut was around 6%. The rate of 5.99 was intentional to get us under the 6%. And it achieved its goal. We recognized in order to get to this level, we had to eliminate itemized deductions in place of a standard deduction and eliminate most state tax credits. The thought was to increase the tax base and even the playing field. It also had the benefit of having the tax less subject to changes made by the federal government than has happened in the past. Federal AGI is less subject to changes than deductions and credits, which can be material and volatile. There's been a misconception that this reform was a tax break for the wealthy. Many wealthy taxpayers paid much more in taxes to Rhode Island, especially when they had high property taxes, high mortgages, high miscellaneous deductions, which now had to be limited to a standard deduction that eventually gets phased out at the higher levels. It's a false argument on the proponents make that the poor pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes to state taxes than the wealthy. The poor pay a higher percentage on all the necessities because they have less disposable income. The real analysis should be what is the burden of the higher income taxpayers on the total state tax revenues. I know the top 1% probably pay 35 to 40% of the overall taxes. We had a calculation that was the top 5% paid 50%. That's the real analysis that take place. So in face of this is not the time to raise taxes. I would urge the committee to not vote these out of committee. It's not the right thing to do at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cap. Stay safe and have a good night, please.
You too.
Okay, welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Abney and Finance Committee. My name is Stuart Benton. I'm the president and CEO of Bradford Soap, a local company that has its corporate location in Rhode Island for over 140 years, and we also have locations in Indiana and California. We currently employ over 300 individuals in Rhode Island. I also serve on the Greater Providence Chamber Board of Directors, the Rhode Island Society of CPAs Board of Directors, and I'm on the advisory board of the Rhode Island Manufacturing Association. I'd like to express my opposition to Bills 5229 and 5227 and my support for House Bill 5215. I oppose the raising of taxes on manufacturing, including many small businesses that pay at the individual rates through pass-through entities in Rhode Island. as it would stop Rhode Island's recovery in its tracks. Rhode Island's businesses are just now starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we are trying to recover from the most devastating event in my lifetime. Raising taxes today, especially when there's no budget gap to fill, would hit these businesses, including manufacturers in the state, especially hard. It would restrict our ability to raise wages and benefits to our team members. It would restrict our ability to hire more workers. It would restrict our ability to invest in our businesses and to continue to invest in the charitable endeavors that we do in our communities. Similarly, any negative changes to tax rules on the transfer of family businesses to the next generation of manufacturers would cost Rhode Island jobs. That is why I do support House Bill 5215. In regards to raising taxes, we have seen with the most recent census results that individuals and businesses are moving from high tax states such as New York, California, and Illinois to low tax states such as Texas, Florida, and North Carolina. Furthermore, in March 2021 Chief Executive Annual Ranking of the Best and Worst States for Businesses, they reported that 44% of those surveyed are more open than before to examining new locations, and that in fact 34% of those surveyed said they are already considering shifting or opening significant operations and facilities in new states. Finally, the survey ranked Rhode Island only as the 37th best state to do business in. So I don't think we should do anything further that would jeopardize bringing investment, jobs, recovery, and hope to Rhode Island. So I ask you to vote down House Bills 5227 and 5229. Thank you for your service to the communities, and thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony this evening. We appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is David Silva. Next.
Hello?
Hello? Could you
Hello?
just, hello, hi, you're live on House Finance. Could you just identify yourself and what bill you're testifying on?
Sure. My name's Alden Anderson, and I'm testifying on the bill related to the proposed tax increase. I don't have the exact bill number in front of me.
Oh, no problem. You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Terrific. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a resident of the city of Providence, as well as a business leader in Rhode Island. And I just want to testify very strongly in regard to my opposition to this proposed income tax increase. I think that we are obviously coming out of some very difficult times here, and our economy is obviously challenged. I can tell you, I'm a commercial real estate advisor and working for a large national company, and we are talking to companies on a regular basis that these are big decisions that companies make around tax policy, and states that have increasing tax obligations, increasing tax liabilities are states that companies are not desirous to expand in and locate in, and I think would be very deleterious in terms of the impacts on our economy to increase both the existence of companies growing in Rhode Island as well as new companies coming to Rhode Island. So I think this is something that is not well thought out. If you look at us as a state in comparison to our neighboring states, the last thing we want to do is become the New York and New Jerseys of the Northeast, where individuals are leaving those states because of significant increases in income taxes. So I'm hoping that in a time where clearly we don't need the money, we're going to get some fairly significant influx of capital from the federal government, that we can try and take a more measured approach here, try and build our economy and avoid having to raise income taxes and create an environment that will make people not want to remain in Rhode Island and not want to come to Rhode Island. I think we've done a very good job over the past number of years attracting people to Rhode Island and attracting companies to Rhode Island, and now is not the time to change that direction and start building what I call tax borders around our state. So I just want to express my strong opposition to this proposed income tax increase.
Okay, thank you for your testimony this evening. We appreciate your input, and you have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Next up, hello?
This is Chris Carlozzi from NFIB.
Hi, Chris. You can go ahead and give your testimony. Just identify the legislation that you're testifying on, and you don't need to have a bill number. But.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. This is Chris Carlozzi. I'm the State Director of the National Federation of Independent Business in Rhode Island, and we are testifying in opposition to House 5227 and House 5229. In Rhode Island, NFIB represents hundreds of small and independent business owners involved in all types of industry, including manufacturing, retail, wholesale, service, hospitality, and agriculture. And the average NFIB member has about 5 employees and annual gross revenue of about $450,000. In short, we represent small Main Street business owners from throughout Rhode Island, many that are still struggling from their losses during the pandemic. And as we've heard tonight all too often, when the proponents talk about these types of proposals, they tend to use language that paints the picture of the wealthiest earners in a state, but too many times forget about the many small businesses, the majority of small businesses who file their taxes as individuals, some of which you've heard this evening. Those people take their profits to grow their business and provide income for others through good-paying jobs. Those businesses will face a tax increase under this proposal at a time when they need to be reinvesting back into their operation and creating much-needed jobs for the state. And the vast majority of our small business membership are organized as pass-through entities like sole proprietorships, partnerships, or subchapter S corporations. They are smaller neighborhood employers. They are local institutions that have struggled to survive this past year, and a tax increase could prove devastating. Rhode Island's still recovering and down over 40,000 jobs from pre-pandemic levels. Industries like restaurants, retailers, tourism, hospitality are all still very much in recovery right now. And Rhode Island should be seeking ways to help these businesses expand their operations, encourage them to remain in the state, and be competitive with our neighbors, and create those jobs that will help lead the state out of this major loss we faced during the pandemic and towards recovery. So raising taxes on small businesses through new tax brackets certainly sends the wrong message. A few proponents tonight mentioned the business community doesn't want taxes in good times or bad times. And that's because Rhode Island cannot tax itself into prosperity. Tax increases don't say Rhode Island is open for business. Instead, they discourage growth. Right now, Rhode Island's highest tax bracket of 5.99% falls between Massachusetts and Connecticut. These proposals will place Rhode Island either higher than the neighboring states or even with Connecticut, a state that is still plagued by bad tax policy. Either way, it places Rhode Island businesses at a competitive disadvantage, and this can result in fewer jobs for existing businesses now facing higher taxes, or dissuade new businesses from opening shop in Rhode Island, choosing a lower tax state, and losing those potential jobs. So on behalf of small businesses who will be impacted by this legislation, we urge you to reject House Bills 5227 and 5229, raising income tax rates. And for the record, NFIB is in support of House Bills 5215 and 6072. So thank you very much for the opportunity this evening.
Thank you, Chris, for your testimony. We appreciate it, and you have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening. Oh. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hi, Melina.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Representative Slater. You can go ahead with your testimony. You're live on House Finance.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening in favor of House Bill 5227. My name is Melina Lodge, and I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Network of Rhode Island. Our organization represents 17 nonprofit and affordable housing developers who serve low-income Rhode Islanders from Westerly to Woonsocket. Collectively, our membership has developed over 15,000 long-term deed-restricted affordable homes and are responsible for nearly 70% of the production and preservation activity that was generated by the 2006, 2012, and 2016 housing bonds. In this session, we've seen housing and the need for increased state investment in it arise as a top priority in the House, in the Senate, and in the governor's budget. And as a housing advocate, let me assure you I'm thrilled to see housing get this type of attention. But without additional sustained revenue sources, I'm concerned there's no realistic path forward to actualize this important value, at least not without taking away from other important priorities. For too long, our state budget discussions have sounded like this: housing or education or workforce development or environmental resources or transportation or infrastructure, always having to choose. House Bill 5227 is an opportunity to shift that narrative from having to pick and choose between deeply critical investments, and allows you to replace the or with an and: housing and education and transportation and workforce development. For this reason, we support House Bill 5227, and I encourage you to as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We really appreciate that, all the things that you do, for the housing network for Rhode Island. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Have a good night.
You're welcome. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of minutes to give us your name and testimony, please.
Hi, my name is Alexis Fernandez, and I am born and raised Providence, Rhode Island, and I am 100% supporting this bill, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. When I turned 20, I had a ruptured brain aneurysm that changed my entire life. I couldn't go back to Roger Williams University, lost my job, lost my hair, everything. The same medicine that saved my life also made my skin super sensitive, so I started making skincare products as a solution. With the same products, I started a business called Solita. See, we are a small business, and we aren't making over $400K, but in our first year, we are now in 11 stores nationwide, but mostly in Rhode Island. But making $400K is definitely in the plan. And when that is my reality, I would be more than happy paying more of the taxes, knowing that my money was going towards things like public school, healthcare, parks, and I graduated from Nathaniel Green in 2012. I graduated from Mount Pleasant in 2016, and both of those schools are still in poor condition. It's so sad that there's still ceilings that are falling on the kids. And there is a common problem with successful people being born and raised here, but after that, they end up leaving the state and they don't come back and they don't share the wealth. There's something nostalgic and timeless for children to grow up in the same city as me and to go to the same schools as me. But why would I tell my kids why would I give my kids go to the same schools that I went to if there's still crappy infrastructure? They also say that the city says that there's no money to help with the school. There's no money for all of these things. But if we support the bill, there will be money. I can only tell my testimony and my story, but I am not alone. The community members submitted over 40 pages of testimonies in support of this bill. And some of the people who wrote are also business owners like me. Just please read the letters that we wrote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and we appreciate the written testimony that you give. We do read it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of minutes to give us your name and the testimony you'd like to give, please.
Cool. Thank you. I'll try to be brief. I'm going to do two bills. My name's Kirk Robinson. I live at 11 Eagle Street in Providence, Rhode Island. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'd like to testify in support of Bill 5528. So I work in higher education, so I really like this one. So because, as you all know, there's a student debt crisis, which, if we trace it back, it started when the federal government in the 1970s stopped allocating funds directly to institutions and instead started giving the money directly to students. And when you combine that with the recent trend of states cutting post-secondary education funding during every single time there's a state budget crisis, you get these institutions that are starved for funds. So what do? They increase tuition. They start acting like businesses. It's not good. So overall, the cost burden has really been completely transferred onto the student now. And there are no subsidies for things like professional education, like in an important field like medicine. So I think sometimes the discourse that students who are doctors can alleviate their debt burden quickly because their field is lucrative, I think might be wishful thinking. But anyway, I digress. I would say that, my spouse, she earned a master's degree in mental health counseling, which is a helping profession. She has close to $100,000 in debt. And this is a degree that, helps people. So what I like about this bill is that it eases the burden on people who have outstanding student loans. And it seems like a no-brainer considering the magnitude of the student debt crisis and sort of somewhat the complicity of the federal government and some state governments in creating it. Some are better than others, but I think here, though, with this bill, Rhode Island has a chance to do something good for student debt holders with this bill. And I commend the sponsors for the moral clarity and bringing this thing up for consideration. And so then I'll try to be brief on my second one. This is in support of Bill 5647. So I think this bill does a really nice job of tracing the recent history of how and why we are in our current inequality crisis. Vastly unequal countries don't stay democratic for long. You take a look at reports about the quality of America's democracy, you'll know that we've been in decline for about a decade now. Anyway, this bill is designed to rein in discrepancy between CEOs' pay and the pay of workers. I think the workers, they're the ones who generate the outputs and the value. So this bill is a great first step in slowing down the hoarding of wealth at the top. So, if that bells for time, I'll just leave it at that and say I support both the ones that I submitted testimony for. And again, I thank the sponsors for 5647. This is a great idea.
And we thank you for your testimony, sir.
All right, take care now.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and testimony.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Carl Davis with the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, or ITEP. We are a national tax policy research organization. House Bill 5227, in my view, really capitalizes on one of the greatest advantages of an income tax, which is that you can fine-tune it based on taxpayers' ability to pay. I think this is a particularly sensible bill when you view it against the backdrop of Rhode Island's broader tax system, which actually tends to charge the highest tax rates to the families with the lowest incomes. So when you factor in sales, excise, property, income tax, low-income families pay about 12% of their income in tax, and that's compared to about 8% for families at the top. So this proposal isn't enough to correct that imbalance, but it's a step in the right direction. And if you were to pair it with something like an expanded earned income tax credit, which I know is also being considered by this committee, that improvement in tax equity could be even more powerful. I want to emphasize that there is no trade-off here between tax equity and economic growth. The academic literature does not show any kind of convincing link between higher top tax rates at the state level and lower economic growth. And the same really goes for claims of millionaire migration in response to higher taxes. Of course, we've heard the anecdotes that support that kind of story, but those examples are so exceedingly rare that they don't even show up in the data. The families that would be paying this tax can clearly afford to live in Rhode Island, regardless of the top income tax rate that you choose to levy. One last point, Rhode Island is certainly not the only state talking about this. New York just enacted top rate increases a matter of weeks ago. New Jersey did so not long before that. If you go back a little further, top rates have been increased in Connecticut, Maryland, California, Hawaii, Minnesota, and New Mexico. Most of those are done through the legislature. But voters in Arizona, they jumped at the chance when they were given it last November, and they approved a new top bracket on incomes over $500,000, bringing their rate up to 8%. And I think we're probably going to see the same thing happen next year in Massachusetts, when voters are likely to have the chance to vote on putting in a 9% top rate for millionaires. So I'll leave it there. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your expertise. It's really useful to us. Stay safe and have a good night, please.
You too. Thank you.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and testimony.
Good evening, David, Sylvia. Good evening, gentlemen, madam. Again, my name's David Sylvia. I've been advocating for passage of this bill now. This is the 8th time that I've testified. So to say that the fact that we haven't got this thing completed and addressed is an understatement, and that's my personal opinion. However, Representative Casey has submitted this bill, and it's obvious the bill would correct the language to the law to allow disabled veterans to receive that same credit as being issued to the people that receive Social Security disability. I find this outrageous that for 8 years now, this has been a form of discrimination against disabled veterans, that they're being denied the same credit as somebody who else is disabled and would follow in the same parameters of the law, such as income at $30,000 a year. I understand there's probably financial motive behind that, but it's not fair that one group of people can take a credit and another group can't. The fact that this has gone on for 8 years, each bill has failed to even get out of a committee in the last 7 years. It's unthinkable that this has been allowed to go on this long. I would hope that the committee sees that this is something that should be granted. Prior to 2012, it was open to veterans, and when they changed the law back to the original way the law was written, it deleted the disabled veteran from taking that credit. So I would hope the committee see that this is something that should be fixed and get this law passed. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I really appreciate it. Take good care of yourself and good night.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, just let the audience know we have about 27 more guests to go, and I want to thank all of you who have been brief and to the point. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You can give us your name and testimony, please.
Sure, Chairman Avenue's Bob Marshall, representing the Rhode Island Developmental Disabilities Council. I'm here to speak on Representative Ruggiero's bill H5681. It's a bill that will help elderly and people with disabilities who are housing cost burdened afford to live in their own home or apartment. The bill is an adjustment to something that's been locked at the same rate, the same caps for 22 years. We all know that both the property taxes and rents have gone up drastically in that period of time, and if anything, this is an adjustment that is low. We think that this does help people, and will help them stay in those apartments or homes. And the only suggestion we have is that you give serious consideration to putting in an inflation factor, so we're not sitting here in 22 years again trying to explain why it's so low. So thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. We appreciate it. Stay safe and have a good night.
Thanks.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You can give us a couple of moments, give us your name and your testimony, please.
Hi, yeah, my name is Amy Paulson. I'm a resident of North Kingstown, and I'm calling in support of 5227 because even though the House and Senate passed a solid budget at the end of 2020 and avoided making some of the deep cuts that would have gutted many of Rhode Island's social programs and devastated our education system, that budget did not address a crucial source of revenue for the state: increased taxation on the wealthiest 1%. My husband and I volunteer at the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center in Newport, and the need for help in the community increased dramatically with the start of the pandemic. In one single month last year, the center served more than half the people than it had in the entire previous year. So the number of people being served at places like the MLK Center in Newport is still at a record high. When the working poor are paying higher taxes than the top 1%, who, as you know, have the lowest tax burden of any income bracket, and have to feed their families through programs like the MLK centers, something is horribly wrong. For someone who makes $500,000 a year, an additional tax of $750 is not going to force them to sell their Tesla or give up their membership at the New York Yacht Club. It might make them grumble for about 5 minutes, but after that, it won't even register. So this new tax bracket is a way to help close our state's budget gaps without inflicting any unnecessary pain on working and middle-class families. In fact, it doesn't cause pain on anyone. I just read a Pew Research poll last month that showed that 80% of all Americans feel that the wealthy are not paying their fair share. This is a no-brainer. We should pass this bill, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for your help at the Martin Luther King Center. That's in my area there in Newport. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, they're a great place. Thanks so much for listening.
You're welcome. Welcome. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and testimony, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the House Finance Committee. Thank you so much for staying this evening. My name is Cynthia Butler, and I'm a human resources consultant with my own small business practicing here in Rhode Island for over 20 years, working with many Rhode Island businesses. I'm testifying in opposition to House Bills 5227 and 5229. I'm testifying because of my knowledge of the Rhode Island business landscape and competitive compensation programs to attract talent. And for the record, I'm not testifying because this legislation would impact me personally. Both bills would raise taxes and hurt Rhode Island's competitiveness. As we try to recover from the pandemic, raising taxes is just a bad idea. As an HR professional, I'm concerned about our ability to attract and retain skilled talent to the state. We have learned through the pandemic that employees can live and work anywhere and pay taxes there, out of state, even if their company is here in Rhode Island. I can't tell you how many Zoom calls I've had this year where the person told me they were working from Florida for months. They could just as easily move there and work remote and pay no Rhode Island state tax at all. This tax increase would have particular impact on senior business leaders, very skilled talent in high-tech and medical industries whom we are trying to attract to Rhode Island to generate revenue, as well as small business. For example, I know a chief financial officer who has a house in New Hampshire. Before the pandemic, he would drive to Rhode Island, work and live here 5 days a week, pay taxes here, and of course the company he worked for paid unemployment, they paid workers' comp, and other taxes on the employee. Then he would go home on the weekends to New Hampshire. During the pandemic, he moved his office to his home in New Hampshire. And if need be, he can drive here, once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Most of his work is computer-based, or he's in meetings, collaborating with his staff on the Teams app. So what's his incentive to come back to Rhode Island if the taxes go up? After all, we know what the income tax is in New Hampshire, 0. Many businesses are now considering allowing employees to work remotely on an ongoing basis, at least part of the time in a hybrid model. I'm concerned by raising taxes on someone like the CFO, we're creating disincentives for them to live and work here in Rhode Island and pay any tax here at all. Never mind the fact that they will also not be contributing to the Rhode Island economy. We have spent so many years and so much money trying to build the economy in the state and build new business and retain our current business, like some of the small businesses you have heard from tonight. So let's not go backwards. We want to make Rhode Island attractive to employers to operate here and for employees to live and work in our great state. As a small business owner and as a board member of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, I urge you to please vote against House Bills 5227 and 5229. Thank you so much for your time and consideration, and please take good care.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and you take care as well. Thank you. Welcome. You have a couple of moments to give your name and testimony. You're on House Finance.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is Giuseppe Mattiello, board member of Rhode Island Manufacturers Association and a 21-year employee of Taco Comfort Solutions in Cranston, Rhode Island. My current role is Northeast Regional Manager for Commercial Products, and I'm here virtually in opposition to Bills 5227 and 5229. Now is not the time to raise taxes. Our economy is fragile. Businesses are struggling to recover after one of the largest pandemics since 1918 to 1919, the Spanish flu. Many businesses are still working off the PPP money, and Governor Dan McKee intends to further tax businesses' profits generated with PPP money over $150,000. That's just wrong. Many of our small businesses are not large corporations. They're small pass-through type entities where owners report their business income on their individual personal tax returns. This is not about taxing wealthy only, which pay high taxes in many different ways. These bills will attack small businesses too. Any increase in tax rates will have severe consequences and will cause jobs and people to leave Rhode Island and go to other states like Florida where businesses thrive and not invest in Rhode Island's future. Think about that. Florida is accepting approximately 2,000 new residents a day, where is Rhode Island in comparison? We're talking about taxing businesses still struggling to run operations in this heavily taxed state. We've learned a lot with this pandemic. It's changed how businesses operate. Many are more flexible and mobile than they were just a year ago. As a responsible state, we need to enact policies that attract new businesses and retain existing businesses and not raise taxes to drive them away. If these bills are passed, Rhode Island will lose these essential revenue-generating businesses to states with lower taxes and certainly not incentivize new businesses to replace them. For this reason, we're considering raising taxes right now. Why not invest in attracting new businesses to increase the tax base as opposed to raising taxes on the existing businesses? Rhode Island received federal funding to ease pandemic-related revenue shortfalls. The budget will be and should be balanced without raising taxes. Rhode Island state government hindered non-essential businesses from operating. Thankfully, President Trump passed the CARES Act bill to provide PPP money to keep businesses open and employees working. That's a great concept, but in some industries, like restaurants and catering, Governor Raimondo's executive orders took customers away. So what would the employees do now that they are slowly recovering because of easing restrictions? Rhode Island wants to raise taxes on these same companies that Governor Raimondo's executive orders closed. Business taxes affect business decisions like job creation, employee retention, and consequently, the long-term health of our state's economy. Increase in income taxes drains capital and impacts the business's ability to prosper. As a board member of Reimer and an employee of one of the largest private employees in Rhode Island, Taco Comfort Solutions, I urge you to vote against Bills 5227 and 5229. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate that. Your testimony is always valuable to us. Stay safe and have a good night, please.
Thank you. God bless.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give your name and your testimony, please.
Yes, right now?
You're on right now.
Okay, my name is Brenda Taylor, and I'm a member of DARE, and I'm saying that I do go along with the idea that the taxes should be also given to the rich. We all are in this situation together, and why not? If they have more than the person on the bottom totem pole, then they should also do their fair share. Now, there was a quick statement that I had wanted to read very quickly that John F. Kennedy had said about America. And John F. Kennedy once said about the wealthy in America, if a free society cannot save the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich, which is very true. So everybody should give up their fair share. If they have more to give, why not? Let's pull everybody up. Why look down on some people? It's not the way that it says, in God we trust here in America. I don't think that was his ideology that we should have people living in the streets like in Bombay or some other foreign, really undeveloped country. Homelessness is about to take over everything. Why not do something constructive? Let's all pull together. The educational system. I nearly cried when I heard about the schools here, Central High, and the kids, someone from Johns Hopkins is crying because they're so far behind in their reading, their scholastics. That doesn't make sense. We all pay taxes. But thank God, both my granddaughters, I'm a grandmother, were National Honor Society students. And they got something. One went to classical, the other one went to Davies. I get up at 5 o'clock to walk her to the corner and get the bus and go to Kennedy Plaza. But she said, no, I'm not going to school. And she's now got her bachelor's and working on her master's, and she's black. And I think everybody deserves a pull-up. Black, brown, yellow, green. And there's a statement that says something about, I leave you one more commandment, and that is to love one another as I have loved you. Is that the end?
Yes, that's very close to it, and you have about another 15 seconds.
Okay, and we all need help in South Providence with some of the streets, some of the housing issues. Affordable housing is one thing. Everybody's gun-ho for money. Can't take it with you. But anyway, people need to live. I love children. Women here that are, because they got children, they have to suffer under the privileges of not being able to get finance. I think you have 3 children and the 4th child doesn't get anything from the state. I did a painting on that.
We have to wrap it up, Brenda.
Well, Brenda from Deer, let's get it going, and everybody work together. All right, over and out.
Thank you so much. I like your spunk. That's good. All right.
Yeah, man. Love you too, darling. God bless.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You're on House Finance. Welcome. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Lori White, and I'm the president of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber represents roughly 1,000 businesses, small, medium-sized, and large businesses located all across Rhode Island. And tonight I am speaking in opposition to 5227 and 5229. As we've heard overwhelmingly tonight, successful high-income earners and taxpayers are very important to the states they reside in for many, many reasons, and I will not go over the many reasons that you've heard tonight from many of our colleagues who have taken the time to participate in tonight's hearing. But in listening, I do want to underscore a couple of points that were made earlier, and that is the notion about exodus and the flight of successful higher earner income people. And many of these individuals are young professionals. And because the Chamber is on the front lines of many of these discussions, we can speak with certainty about the impact that such legislation would have. Successful higher income earners and taxpayers are very responsive to changes in tax rates and, of course, are willing to move their official permanent residence and therefore their businesses and jobs. And we've heard so many from the CPA profession tonight and other business professionals talk about how easy it is to move across state lines. In terms of the amount of revenue that is suggested that could be raised, I would say the projections are simply the opposite. We're talking about 8.99%. If you multiply that times 0, that's still 0. If you're talking about 6.99% at the higher income, 6.99% times 0 is still 0. So when we see an exodus of individuals who have means moving out of state, this, in fact, does not create revenue for Rhode Island. In fact, it creates the opposite, and, in fact, will not be a sustainable source of revenue. Finally, one point that has not been mentioned tonight in Bill H5229, when it's discussed about setting up a restricted receipt account for education, I will point out that sweeps do in fact happen, and such sweeps are fairly routine, so we cannot guarantee that any of these monies potentially would go to support education. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, for allowing me this opportunity to testify tonight.
Thank you so much for your expertise and always helpful. Appreciate it. Have a great evening and stay safe, please.
Thank you.
We have about 21 more guests to go, so we're getting down near the end. You are on House Finance. Welcome. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Steve Morano. I'm testifying tonight as a member of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce. I'm not a businessman, but I've been involved in economic development issues in this state for over 30 years, going back to when Joe Garrahy was governor and we had a Department of Economic Development. I don't make anywhere near the amount of money to where these bills would affect me one way or the other. So I don't have a vested interest in terms of, you know, the bills affecting me personally. But all of my time working on behalf of economic development convinces me that these bills would be bad for Rhode Island's competitive position. I think we need to attract more business to this state and more taxpayers to this state, not drive them away. And I think that these bills would hurt our competitive position. I firmly believe that there are businesses out there that are poised to invest in Rhode Island. And I'm concerned that tax hikes of this nature, such as the ones that are proposed in both 5227 and 5229, would drive these businesses away and cause them to think otherwise about investing in Rhode Island. So I would just implore you not to pass these bills, because I think raising these taxes at this time is a bad idea. I believe that the money that we have coming from the federal government, that we have received and that we are poised to receive, will cover the shortfalls that our state has endured because of the pandemic. And again, I just reiterate that I think raising these taxes at this time is a bad idea. Thank you for your time. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony, Steve. It was important to us. Hope you have a great evening, and I'll speak to you soon again, I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Well, Chairman Abney and members of the House Finance Committee, I thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Christopher Graham. I am the Office Managing Partner of Lock Lord LLP, formerly known in Rhode Island as Edwards and Angel. I am testifying today in opposition to House Bill 5227 and House Bill 5229. I agree with many of the previous witnesses who I'm sure you've heard, who are concerned about the seriously negative impact on the bills that the bills will have on all of the Rhode Island small businesses that are income pass-throughs. But I want to highlight a slightly different issue and ask for your consideration. Both of these bills would raise taxes and hurt Rhode Island's competitiveness, in my opinion. As we try to recover from the pandemic, raising taxes is simply the wrong message. We need to attract more businesses and taxpayers, not drive them away. We never want to be the outlier on tax rates. It's foolish and a bad judgment call. There's no doubt in my mind that raising the tax rate on the highest earners will discourage business executives from making or even keeping their home in Rhode Island. The highest earners are the business decision makers, and the decision makers have learned to work remotely as well as you and I. When decision makers don't live in Rhode Island, the consequences are significant. They are no longer likely to invest in their Rhode Island presence or grow their Rhode Island operations. Their businesses don't use Rhode Island law firms, near and dear to my heart, nor do they use Rhode Island accounting firms or Rhode Island banks or Rhode Island marketing firms, or Rhode Island ad agencies, or Rhode Island insurance brokers. Their other top executives, if not high earners themselves, typically locate close to where the decision makers live, not where a factory or a plant may be located. So we likely lose the entire next level of management as well. None of them will shop in Rhode Island or eat at Rhode Island restaurants or go to Rhode Island cultural events. None of them will give to Rhode Island charities. The impact of discouraging their presence in Rhode Island is far more significant than just losing one individual. Rhode Island still has reputational issues and as a state not friendly to business. We shouldn't exacerbate those issues or give decision makers a reason not to stay here or come and grow that business. So I ask you to please, please, please vote against both of those bills, 5227 and 5229. I know you have a tough job. I know you have lots of people appealing to you for other considerations. I appreciate your listening to me on this particular issue, and I just simply ask you to consider how many of the sponsors of the bill are actually owners or decision makers of those Rhode Island businesses that you're confronting with these tax increases. I really don't think they quite have the perspective, even though I'm sure they're very well intentioned. So thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate it's late at night. I know you guys want to go home, and thank you.
No. Thank you very much for your testimony. It's always important to us. All of our guests give us a different perspective. So I appreciate your cooperating with us tonight, sir. Okay.
All right. Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Welcome. You're on House Finance. Do you have a TV on in the background?
I just turned it off.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. You're on House Finance, and you have a couple of moments to give us your name and testimony, please. You may begin.
Okay, my name is Georgine Maniscalchi Edwards. I'm a 60-year-old white woman from Saunderstown, Rhode Island. I didn't grow up here. I grew up on Long Island. And the only reason my family was middle class was that my first-generation father got drafted and then became eligible for the GI Bill, which gave him a college education and a really good rate on his mortgage that he and my mother took out on the house I grew up in. Also, my two sisters and I had really good public school educations there. And I think that our story is pretty common for people who were born in the middle of the 20th century. Sadly, I think our whole country has moved away from that kind of society where people all paid their fair share and took care of each other and felt good about it. And the government also did its part by taxing people progressively, including taxing rich people more. I'm not rich now, but I feel rich because I feel blessed. I have so much. I have had good, decent jobs with benefits all my career. I'm retired now. My husband is still working. Our daughters are earning their own living. We're lucky. We are white people who grew up middle class in America, and I feel like that is disappearing. And I feel really bad for the people who don't have all the benefits that I grew up with, and we're not doing anything to help them get a leg up. So I really, it bothers me a lot to hear people make the argument that rich people are going to move out of our state. I think we could probably, just like with the minimum wage, get together with other states around us, and instead of competing with each other to see who can give the most tax breaks, that ends up just being a losing game for everybody. We all give so many tax breaks that
that we lose out. We either lose the people or we lose their tax money because we're afraid to tax them because they're going to move away. It doesn't make any sense. Please pass 5227.
Thank you for your heartfelt testimony. It was really important to us. So
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Have a great evening and stay safe, please.
Thanks, you too.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You've got a couple of moments to give us your name and testimony, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Kara Cromwell. I'm from Bristol, and I work with the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also a small business owner who's had a company in Bristol for about 16 years. I'm going to be incredibly brief because I've been listening to all the testimony this evening, and I know you have as well. So I really just want to make one point. People are taking the pandemic as an opportunity to change their lives and perhaps move their business, relocate, be mobile. No one's going to say, let me go someplace where I can pay more in taxes. And we always talk about how we can't attract and retain good talent in this state. And here's a perfect example of a reason why we couldn't. We're hurting our competitiveness, and will hurt our business community moving forward. Raising taxes just sends the wrong message, and this is a bad time to send it. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify this evening, and thank you for your hard work and your long evening.
Thank you, Kara, for your testimony. It's always important to us. Have a great evening and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You've got a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Hi, this is Wilfred Roth. I'd like to thank the chairman and the committee for giving time. I realize it's late, so I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to express opposition to the bills 5229 and the other one that's trying to create a new tax bracket and increase taxes, number one, in a year that everyone's still trying to kind of dig out from the pandemic. It's not exactly the best of times to be raising taxes. Also, a lot of small businesses, which every time I hear Rhode Island politicians and federal politicians talk, it seems like small businesses support is one of the first things they all want to talk about. A lot of small businesses are subchapter S corporations or LLCs. They report their pass-through income and their personal taxes. This was going to impact a large number of small businesses and basically is going to put Rhode Island in a position where we're charging higher taxes than our neighbors or most of the other states in the country. It basically makes us less attractive to attract business. It makes us less attractive in retaining small businesses, and I think is a very bad idea for the state. I thank you all for your time and wish you all a good night.
Thank you for the time you took to wait, and I hope you have a great night and keep yourself safe. We have about 13 more guests to go. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name, please, and your testimony.
13 more guests to go.
Terrence Partesian.
Oh, yeah. Did you turn your television down in the background?
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name.
Terrence, I can hear your television or something in the background.
Terrence Partesian?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Did you turn your television down in the background?
There is no television on. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's probably your computer, sir. That's all right. Just go ahead and testify. Probably your computer. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Terrence Partesian, and I'm going to cut my testimony quite a bit. I represent the... Members of the committee, my name is Terrence Partesian.
I think you still have your computer on, perhaps, because we're getting the background.
How's that?
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Anyway, Terrence Martesian, and I'll testifying tonight on behalf of the Rhode Island Mortgage Bankers Association and the Rhode Island Lumber and Building Material Dealers Association. For the record, both of these trade associations are opposed to House Bill 5227 and 5229. And again, I'm going to paraphrase. This type of legislation that has become very problematic for the business community, because what it's doing is going to put us going in the wrong direction. It is important to note that the tax increases do not fall on the very rich. As you've heard, most small businesses are helped by entities, be it individuals, sole proprietorships, S corporations or partnerships that pass through for tax purposes, meaning that the income of the business is passed through its owners and is taxed on the personal income tax returns. Increasing the rate of tax at a time when small businesses are struggling due to the pandemic will take money needed for new investment out of the businesses at a time when the owners need the money to get their businesses back on their feet or just trying to survive. When the tax rate of 5.99% was put into Rhode Island tax code back in 2011, it was done in a revenue neutral way by eliminating deductions and other tax breaks that lowered the effective rate. Passage would in fact wipe out the result of the 2011 reforms that reduced our business climate from a 47th place nationally to 37th. And presently, our 5.99% income tax rate is still higher than Massachusetts, 5%. If one of the bills passes, it'll be 8.99%, about 80% increase. And Connecticut is 6.99, and for some of the things that it's done, its economy tanked even before COVID-19. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. This will have a long way of going in the wrong direction. Taxes do matter to businesses, be it business decisions, job creation, plant location, growth, competitiveness, and more important, the future health and direction of the state's economy. Lastly, states should not be enacting these tax changes, be it increases or cuts, in a vacuum, especially if it will impact its own businesses and competitiveness with its neighboring states. It's just the wrong way to go. And I think it's an important thing to take into consideration, our competitiveness, and we're not going to even have it, not even with the regional, as far as passing this particular type of legislation. Why would a state increase its tax while its state's businesses are trying to recover from a pandemic? I'm still trying to understand the rationale for it. And this type of legislation only fortify our business reputation. For these and other reasons, the Rhode Island Mortgage Bankers Association and the Rhode Island Lumber and Building Material Dealers Association ask that you not pass H 5227 and 5229. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Well, thank you, Terrence, and we hope you have a good night and a safe day tomorrow, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony, please.
Hello, this is Peter Nightingale. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So as I said, this is Peter Nightingale. I'm testifying on behalf of the Rhode Island Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival. The campaign has identified 5 interlocking injustices. The one that I will focus on is poverty and inequality. We demand an end to all of these injustices, and in this particular case, it's quite simple. Let the rich pay their fair share of taxes. And let me remind you also that in the 1950s, the upper tax bracket exceeded 90%. To address poverty and inequality, we really need to overhaul the tax system completely. We need a Robin Hood tax an estate tax, an inheritance tax, a luxury tax, and I could go on, but I won't in view of the time. Let me also remind you that in countries where people do have these taxes, they are doing quite well. And as a matter of fact, the level of poverty and inequality is not nearly close to what it is in the United States. I would also like to refer you to a written testimony that we submitted. There are specific details about Rhode Island. So in conclusion, I would say this bill would be a small step in the right direction. Please make that step and then keep going. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Peter. Hope you have a good evening and take care of yourself. Thanks for your testimony.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Luis Daniel Munoz. I'm a medical doctor, resident of Pawtucket, a member of the Rhode Island State Equity Council, and a gubernatorial candidate for the 2022 election cycle. I'm speaking today as an individual, and I'm calling in support of House Bill 5227. Systemic inequities have only worsened throughout this crisis, and we cannot return to the normalcy of indifference, which has allowed the poor to become poorer in this country and in this state. According to Crossroads Rhode Island, 118,367 very important Rhode Islanders lived in poverty in 2018, and this figure was pre-COVID-19. According to the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless, a family paying an average rent of approximately $1,600 per month for a two-bedroom apartment would have to earn over $66,000 to afford housing. We saw a 4.6% increase in homelessness in Rhode Island from 2019 to 2020, and one can only wonder what that data will show in the next 12 months. Healthcare costs continue to rise, making it unmanageable for many working families to afford medications and resources. We've seen a 12% increase in unsubsidized health premium insurance rates since 2018, while Rhode Islanders currently face the threat that hospitals and insurers like Blue Cross and Blue Shield will send them bills for COVID-19 treatment. Economic conditions are worsening for Rhode Island's working families, and any programs to address the growing need of our struggling communities will require funding to allocate to support programs that can help lift people out of dire circumstances. Rhode Islanders deserve livable wages, free community health care, environmental and housing justice, and we can get there. But to do so, it's time for those who have had the privilege of earning over $475,000 a year to pay their fair share of taxes, regardless of whether they are using pass-throughs to pull in personal profits or in an attempt to avoid double taxation of a C-Corp structure, so that Rhode Island can generate the revenues to fund the very programs that will house, educate, feed, and build up the next generation of working Rhode Islanders. Lastly, I'd like to put a plug in to just say that I also believe that Brown University should be paying taxes and that pollution-generating industries should pay more taxes for the harm done at the expense of their expanding infrastructure and growing profits. It's time for progress, and thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for this time.
Thank you so much, Louis. We appreciate your testimony. Have a great evening and stay safe.
You as well, sir.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You've got a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Thank you very much, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is David Valise. I am the director and lead organizer for the Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty. The Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty strongly supports House Bill 5227, which would create a new income tax bracket, a more just tax system, and would raise revenue for the state. We also want to support House Bill 5013, which would increase the Rhode Island earned income tax credit. In the face of unprecedented suffering and social need, we must raise revenue for vital programs and services in an equitable way. Raising revenue for the state by having everyone pay their fair share seems like a basic and fundamental approach. The wealthiest in our state should pay their fair share of taxes. Currently, the lowest income bracket pays a higher percentage of taxes. This is absurd, especially given the economic hurdles that poor and working class families face. I implore you to pass this legislation and show Rhode Islanders that we believe in fairness. The Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty is a coalition of faith leaders and advocates throughout Rhode Island who are working to end poverty and fight inequality. Our collective faiths are united in the belief that we must fight injustice and help those in need. Passing House Bill 5227 would bring much needed revenue to the state by simply enforcing the belief that most of the public believe, which is that those that can contribute more should contribute more. Regarding Bill H513, we believe that the EITC is an effective and necessary strategy to reduce poverty and near poverty conditions, especially for children. In Rhode Island, almost 1 in 5 children live in poverty. The EITC has a target effect on families with children. As families struggle to make ends meet, there is a meaningful impact in every percentage point. To put it in concrete terms, the percentage point buys a couple of more boxes of diapers, helps stock up on groceries, and maybe fix your car if you need it. This is especially critical for working class families of color, with a median income for Black and Latino families being almost $20,000 less than white households. So we ask you tonight to please pass both of these bills that will bring a lot of resources to the communities that we represent. Thank you to Rep. Alsalte and Rep. Slater for introducing them. Thank you for all the people who came out to support working class and poor Rhode Islanders. And thank you all to the committee for having me speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate your testimony. Good night and stay safe.
You. Good night.
Sure. Okay, we have about 9 more guests to go according to my list. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Thank you. This is Kate Shapira calling in from Providence on House Bills 5227 and 5647. Thank you to the chair and the members of the committee. The money that House Bill 5227 would allow Rhode Island to collect from people who make over $400,000 a year could help us pay for some of the things or parts of things that we're always saying would be so good, but we just can't pay for them. It could save lives by paying for safe and stable housing that keeps someone off the streets, affordable preventative care that catches and treats cancer early, or even better bike lanes that give adequate space for both biking and driving commuters, reducing the chances of collision. On the one hand, you've got a mild inconvenience for the people being taxed, a small adjustment to their living expenses and pleasures. On the other hand, you've got people who are alive instead of dead. That is an excellent trade-off. If you could save someone's life by cutting your vacation short for a couple of days or putting off resurfacing your driveway for another year, wouldn't you do it? That's really what we're talking about here. No one eligible for this tax increase would lose the ability to pay for essentials, and taxing them at the increased rate would increase other people's access to essentials. Some of the public goods it could pay for would also directly benefit the people whose taxes it increases. 2 examples are better road maintenance and cleaner air through green energy projects. A common argument that I hear against raising any kind of taxes is, well, then people who are eligible for that tax won't want to live here. But if they can't contribute to the public good of our state, why do we want them here? That's like inviting someone to come eat ice cream in your house and not give you any. People who earn the kind of money that this bill taxes can afford to pay more into the public good and still have very pleasant private lives. Let's pass House Bill 5227 and make that possible. I also want to put in a quick word for House Bill 5647, which would encourage employers to either pay fairer wages or, again, pay into the public good via taxes by providing for the surtax on companies where the CEO makes over 100 times what a median paid worker makes. If we want to keep skilled and talented people at work in this state by compensating them fairly for their work, this is a great way to do that. And if businesses can't operate without underpaying their employees, perhaps we don't need them here at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your important testimony. We really appreciate that. Good night and have a safe tomorrow. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Okay, coming right. You're ready. My name is Steve O'Donnell, and tell me when I can speak.
Oh, you're welcome. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great.
Great. You're on, sir.
Good evening. So I'm calling in testifying to in opposition to Bill H5227, H5229. I'm speaking as a nonprofit CEO only and representing myself at the Greater Providence YMCA, but also a member of the Providence Chamber of Commerce. From our perspective, the nonprofits and for-profit companies are impacted by these bills. based on what's happening nationally, where the state is receiving a lot of funds from the relief package, as well as when we talk about nonprofits, some people think they're not taxable, so does it impact them? It certainly does, and it does because of trickle-down effect that impacts staff. A lot of nonprofits, including mine, have staff that have low wage and or minimum wage, so when taxes get raised, the impact on them is greater than most. So I believe, coupled with the stimulus package that the state is receiving, as well as this, and what everybody endured as a Rhode Islander and actually every American during COVID, this would not be the appropriate time to raise taxes. And that's my opinion. I appreciate the time to be heard.
And we appreciate your testimony and the good work that you're doing over at the YMCA. Take good care of yourself now.
Rep, nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and your testimony, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Randall Rose, and I'm speaking in favor of 5227, the bill to raise the top bracket of income tax. This bill would raise the top bracket to 8.99%, which is less than we had about a decade ago. About a decade ago was 9.9%. It's money we really need. We've been seeing huge and increasing costs from the pandemic. We are bound to see more crises coming up in the future that are going to test our resilience as a society, and we are going to need to be able to raise the revenue to be able to deal with these crises. The future is not going to belong to the states that refuse to spend money and keep their head in the sand about the dangers of climate change and other problems that we are being faced with. I know that there's been arguments about people who are registered as S corporations or other pass-throughs. First of all, let me be totally clear about this. If you have a pass-through corporation, this is not going to be a tax on your payroll. It's not going to be a tax on your sales. It's not going to be a tax on your revenue. It's a tax on your corporation's income. So if your corporation is having a bad year, then you're not going to have $75,000 worth of income. You're not going to be subject to the tax. If you have a pass-through that is making over $475,000 even in a bad year for your corporation, that means your company is making a lot more than that in a good year. It's a company that can afford the tax. And again, this is a tax on profit, so it's not going to tip a company from profitability into red ink or anything like that. It's just a few percent tax on income for companies that can easily afford it. And if you do own a company that's making that much in income or share in the company, then you are wealthy enough that you should be willing to contribute when our state has been in a lot of debt for many years. When our country is in debt, you have to be willing to contribute to making this a better environment. And what makes our state more attractive to people is not keeping a low tax on the rich, but providing amenities so that young people are willing to move here and stay in Rhode Island. Like many states, we face a problem retaining young people. If you're willing to spend on resources on making the state a good place and a comfortable place to live, paying for education and so on, then you're going to attract and retain young people. We have not been willing to spend on that since our tax cuts back in 2010. That's cut the top bracket drastically. We have not done great at attracting and retaining people. We came very close to losing a congressional seat, and we're likely to lose that next time. So for all those reasons, I support the bill. I signed up for other bills, but I'll wait till those come up.
Thank you very much, Randall. We really appreciate that. What's that? Oh, Randall?
Yes.
Oh, you see if you have if you have more than one bill, we will give you a couple of extra moments. So we're not coming back again once you're off. So if you got more than one bill, we'll give you another minute and a half or so to talk about those, if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just didn't want to lose the amount of time I had to talk about that bill, which was the most important one. Going on to the Bill 5647, the bill that taxes companies that overpay their CEOs. I'm also in favor of that for somewhat similar reasons. But that's not even a tax on individuals, not remotely close to being a tax on individuals. It's only a tax on the very largest corporations, the corporations that are subject to the SEC pay ratio disclosure rule, companies that are subject to SEC requirements to disclose compensation for executives under Regulation SK, that only applies to publicly traded corporations, companies that have a stock market listing and have over $75 million. It's only companies that have over $75 million in revenue, I believe. So vast majority of corporations is not going to apply to. But if you have a corporation like that, especially an out-of-state corporation, as most of them are, and they are overpaying their CEO, paying their CEO more than 100 times or more than 250 times their median employee, that's the only corporations this is going to apply to, ones that pay their CEO more than 100 times their median employee. If you've got a company like that, that's not a company that's being run in a way that's going to have much of a trickle-down effect. It's not a company that's being run in a way that benefits the economy. It's being a company that's being run for the benefit primarily of the people at the top of the company, and not for the benefit of their shareholders, because there's no need for a company to pay its CEO tens of millions and pay very little to its employees, its median employers. So for those reasons, I think it's important to pass that bill, because it sends a good message, and because passing that bill will lead to a change in attitudes, and will lead to companies not being so indulgent to their CEOs in terms of paying them huge amounts. So for those reasons, I'm in support of the bill. I'm also in support of the bill for raising the earned income tax credit. There are two of them, 5013 and 5366, both good. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that, because you've already heard good reasons in written testimony and spoken testimony.
And thank you for your testimony, Randall.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name, please, and your testimony.
Thank you so much, members of the committee. My name is Cassie Theringer. I'm currently a resident of Providence, and I've lived in Rhode Island for a little over 20 years. And at the risk of betraying my home state of Vermont, I have to say that I love Rhode Island, and I love calling this state home so incredibly much. And over the past 20 years, I've gotten to know and fall in love with the people and cities and towns and farms and beaches and food across the state. And I've never been able to answer that whole time this question of why, given how much we have going for us here, why it always seemed like we were struggling and failing so much in some kind of core critical areas, why our urban schools were so underfunded and failing, or our roads so bad, or bridges about to collapse, or social service systems inadequate. How could we really have so little money and resources here? And the narrative I'd always hear was, oh, it's corruption or bureaucratic incompetency, or even it's our low self-esteem as a state. And over the last year, I've been learning a lot about the history and politics and process of Rhode Island state budget and tax policy, and not professionally, not at all what I do, but I've just been interested in learning, and I've been learning about what we have and have not taxed and funded. And it's finally clicked to me that the answer to those questions, why don't these systems work better in Rhode Island, is that we've chosen over the last 20 years to not adequately fund these things at the state level, and we have continuously cut taxes on the highest earners. And And I was really honestly shocked to learn recently that since the early 90s, the income tax rate on the richest Rhode Islanders was cut in half, while the top rate on the middle earners went down 1/4%. And I know the amount of lost revenue represented by tax cuts for the rich over these decades has been calculated at over $2 billion. And when I hear that, I have the answer to my question of why. And I think the people, the amazing people of this state and the amazing resources and communities we have here deserve roads and schools and bridges and clean air and all of these things. And I think the small business pass-through tax is a red herring. It doesn't matter what type of business, large or small, your money goes through before you earn it. If after you've calculated your deductions and done all your revenue, get your net revenue. If you're making over $475,000, you can kick in for the quality of life we all deserve. Thank you so much for your time at this late hour.
And thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate it. Stay safe and have a nice day tomorrow.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You have a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Okay. My name is Tom Seguris, and I've been researching and monitoring tax policy in Rhode Island since 1988. Shall I just continue? Is that?
Yes, please continue. You're on the clock, sir.
Okay. Since 1995, when the state tax administrator chose to ignore a surtax on wealthy taxpayers, the state's tax policy has been all about giving money to rich people in the hope that they would do something constructive with it. We cut the income tax by 10% across the board in 1997 to 2002. We cut the capital gains taxes shortly after that. We established tradable tax credits for several purposes. There was a flat tax in 2007 that was supposed to be temporary, but it was baked in permanently in the 2011 changes. And altogether, that's over a quarter century of indulgence to the idea that tax cuts promote economic growth. I see no evidence, really, that we got what we were promised, but there's overwhelming evidence that we lost out on important investments in the meantime. Those 25 years' worth of tax cuts represent well over $2 billion in foregone revenue. That's 2 whole years of income tax collections. And when the legislature made those cuts, they were never paid for. Nobody identified the spending that was to be cut to pay for them. So we didn't, just for example, we didn't invest in the state's schools. And accounting for inflation, local school funding next fiscal year might just barely reach the level that it was at in 2003. And that level was before No Child Left Behind and a whole host of state education mandates came in as well. We also didn't change local mandates for clean water, for elections, policing, or really anything else. The state just moved responsibilities onto cities and towns while patting itself on the back for cutting taxes. Property taxes, of course, fall most heavily on poor people, so at the same time we were making life easier for the rich. We were making things more miserable for the poorest Rhode Islanders while also failing to invest in education, public transit, and affordable housing. And I think it's a shame to run the state this way. They say the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago, but the second best time is now. We made some serious mistakes in tax policy 25 years ago, but now is the time to fix them. So I support the legislation before us.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony. It was well appreciated. Have a great night and a safe day tomorrow, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Welcome. You're on House Finance. You've got a couple of moments, please, to give us your name and your testimony.
Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome.
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you very much to you and to the members of the Committee on Finance. I thank you for your service to our state on this very long night. My name is Rabbi Jeffrey Goldwasser. I'm the spiritual leader of Temple Sinai in Cranston and a member of the steering committee of the Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty. I'm testifying this evening in favor of Representative Alzate's bill, HB 5227. Within all religious traditions is the belief that wealth should never be allowed to become self-justifying, an end in itself. Wealth just for the sake of being wealthy is immoral, just as power just for the sake of power is immoral. The purpose of wealth is to do good with it, to build a better society and a better world. This is what the Bible means when it commands that the farmer must leave the corners of the field for the poor. We're taught, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor. Wealth exists for the purpose of benefiting society as a whole and benefiting people in need. For people to use their wealth solely for their own self-aggrandizement is a misuse of God's gifts. Giving to the poor is not optional. It is mandatory. In a real sense, it is not really giving at all. It is allowing to happen what should happen. This is why in Judaism we call this kind of sharing of wealth with those in need tzedakah, which means justice. Sharing wealth with the poor is not an optional act of charity. It is a mandatory act of justice. Christianity holds a similar position. St. Ambrose put it this way in the 4th century. You are not making a gift of what is yours to the poor, but you are giving him back what is his. You've been appropriating things that are meant to be for the common use of everyone. The earth belongs to everyone, not just to the rich. Despite this once universally understood nature of wealth, that it exists for socially constructive purposes, we're now living in a society that worships at the altar of money for the sake of money. But the gains in wealth in our money-focused society have only benefited those at the top and have actually increased the suffering of the poor. The gap between rich and poor is worse than ever, worse than it was when the Vanderbilts and their cohort of wealthy elites built the mansions of Newport. In 1990, the top wealthiest 1% of Americans controlled 23% of the nation's wealth. Today, they control more than 30%. With each year, more and more wealth is concentrated at the top, while the slice of the economic pie for the bottom 80% gets smaller and smaller. The trend continues this way because our tax laws allow it to. In fact, we promote this concentration of wealth by treating people who make $1 million or $10 million or $100 million the same. We treat them the same as people who make $150,000, as if their situations were the same. We've allowed wealth to accumulate into the hands of the 1% by pretending that their stratospheric levels of wealth are no different from the rest of us. House Bill 5227 begins to address this by adding a new tax bracket for the top 1% of earners at a marginal rate of 8.99%. You've heard all about that tonight.
Another 30 seconds, Rabbi.
Okay. So the bill would allow money to be spent on chronically underfunded schools, on struggling cities and towns, on programs for elderly people with disabilities, veterans' homes, and our crumbling infrastructure. It's not just a wise way for us to direct our wealth, but it's a way for us to live in a society according to the values that we hold dear in our faith traditions. I thank you for this opportunity to testify, and God bless you for your service to our state.
Thank you so much for your heartfelt testimony, and have a safe evening and a good day tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Chairman.
You're
Have a
quite
good
welcome. Mm-hmm. I think that this next one is taking us home. Am I correct, Mr. Clerk? Okay. Welcome. You are on House Finance. You have a couple of moments to give us your name and testimony. And please turn your television in the back or computer down.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
Later than anticipated, but hopefully not too bad. Hi, my name is Alan McLeod. I am here to give my testimony in support of House Bill 5227. I'm a small business owner, an independent contractor with an education company, and having listened to some of the testimony tonight, I think it's telling that the people who are arguing in favor of this bill come from places like Coalitions for the Homeless and people who are against poverty, and the people arguing in favor of these bills are quote-unquote small business owners. I can say that as a small business owner who makes nowhere close, even in net, to $475,000 a year, that this bill, if passed, to return our taxes, not raise them, create a new top marginal tax rate, but return our top marginal tax rate to something close to what it was in 2006, is only going to benefit the poorest people in Rhode Island and only mildly inconvenience the very, very rich. This is a state right now where the bottom 20% of earners as a percentage of income pay 12.1% in taxes, while the top 1% pay 7.9%. That is a 4.2% difference in taxes, and it means that the top 1% of people in this state pay 4.2% in taxes as a percent of income, more lowest 20%. People for whom a couple $100s is the difference between paying rent and living on, and not being able to pay rent and having to go without utilities. This is a bill that will only affect 5,000 people in the state, the very, very top earners, yet generate a huge amount of money, generate $128.2 million. And this is a bill that 2/3 of Rhode Islanders support. When I look to what bills I want to support, I like to think, and I don't identify as a religious person, but there's something that Jesus Christ said, whatsoever you do for the least of my people, that you do for me. And I like to think of what we are doing for the least of our people in this state. And this is a state that is severely underfunded. We have underfunded infrastructure, state spending, funding to cities and towns, the veterans home, programs for senior citizens, programs for people with disabilities, schools and public infrastructures. I was talking to a high school student last week who was complaining about the buckets of rats lining the halls because no one could clear them. Buckets of rats. This is something that will only benefit the very poorest at a marginal inconvenience to the richest in the state. People who, unlike me, have businesses large enough that they can afford the small inconvenience. For someone making $500,000 a year, that's $750 extra. For people making $1 million, that's $13,000. It's not that much, and that's why I'm in favor of this bill. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Keep your eyes on the road. I want you to stay safe and get back now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Okay, I believe that concludes the testimony for tonight, so therefore I can close the hearings on all of the bills that we held for further study. And I want to thank all of you who out on the outside called in and gave us some good information, and my mates here for staying in. It was a good time. So, and all the staff here that keep us on TV and keep everything going. We can't do this without that teamwork. So have a great evening and see you back here next week. That ends the hearing tonight.